The crack of a palm against skin silenced the diner. Forks hovered midair, a spoon clattered into a bowl of soup, and every breath seemed to pause at once. Across the booth's red vinyl, an elderly woman straightened her back, her cheek flaming but her eyes unshaken. She did not raise her hand in defense, nor did she cry out. She simply looked at the man who had struck her as though daring him to try again. Rick Dalton smirked, the satisfaction of dominance curling in his lips. To him, she was just another easy target, a frail reminder of weakness. He had come in with 2 drinking buddies, laughing too loud, knocking chairs, sneering at whoever met their gaze. The diner was supposed to be their stage. When the old woman had asked him to lower his voice so others could eat in peace, Rick felt something in him snap. Her calm words pricked his pride like a blade, and his hand flew before his mind could stop it. The silence that followed was heavier than steel. A young waitress stood frozen, tray shaking in her grip. An older man at the counter clenched his fists, yet stayed rooted to the stool. Fear held the room captive. The woman, Evelyn Hayes, did not waver. At 71, she had known too much hardship to be cowed by a coward's slap. She had buried her husband, raised a son alone, and endured a world that often tried to strip dignity from women like her. But standing there, eyes steady, she seemed taller than Rick could ever hope to be. Then the door opened. The bell jingled softly, and sunlight spilled over the floor as a tall figure entered. He moved with quiet force, the kind that comes not from bluster, but from years of carrying real responsibility. His suit was crisp, his stride deliberate, and though his face was calm, his eyes burned with fire. Ethan Hayes had arrived. Few in that diner knew his name beyond being Evelyn's son. Fewer still realized he had just been appointed to one of the highest offices in the country, a man trusted to guard the nation itself. But in that moment, he wasn't the head of anything. He was a son, walking in on the sight of his mother's cheek stung red by the hand of a stranger. Rick chuckled, mistaking the silence for victory, unaware he had already signed his downfall. He shifted his weight, preparing another insult, but the shift in the room's air caught him off guard. Conversations had not resumed. No one dared move. All eyes were now on the doorway, on the man standing there like a storm waiting to break. Evelyn lifted her chin, her lips pressing into the smallest of smiles. She had prayed quietly after the strike, not for herself, but for the man foolish enough to believe she was alone. Her prayer was already answered. Ethan took a step forward. The sound of his shoes against the linoleum floor echoed louder than Rick's slap ever had. For the first time that morning, Rick Dalton felt something colder than fear creep down his spine. He had thought he was teaching a lesson to a defenseless woman. Instead, he had just invited judgment he was not ready to face. His eyes, sharp as steel, locked instantly on his mother. Evelyn Hayes stood ramrod straight, her cheeks still burning from the blow, while a man loomed over her with his hand hanging in the air as though he might strike again. For a single heartbeat, Ethan Hayes was no longer the man in the polished suit, no longer the one who held responsibility few could imagine. He was a boy again, remembering the nights when his mother worked double shifts to put food on the table, the quiet tears she thought he never saw, the endless sacrifices she endured without complaint. That memory surged through him like fire, and with it came a clarity Rick Dalton would soon regret. The air in the diner thickened as Ethan stepped forward. The chatter and clinking dishes that had filled the room minutes earlier were gone, replaced by a silence so taut it rang louder than noise. Every eye followed the man in the suit who carried himself with unshakable certainty. Rick squinted at him, mistaking him for some ordinary customer trying to play hero. His grin wavered, but arrogance still propped up his posture. The closer Ethan drew, the more the room seemed to shrink. His presence didn't shout, it weighed. It pressed into every corner of the diner until even the light through the blinds felt dimmer. Rick's 2 companions shifted nervously, inching backward, their laughter long gone. The smirk on Rick's face faltered as he felt something he hadn't known in years, the raw, choking edge of fear. Evelyn's eyes softened the instant she saw her son. She did not move or call out. She didn't need to. Ethan read every silent word written on her face, the hurt she endured, the pride she carried, and the quiet plea for restraint. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, as if to say, "I see you. I've got you." Then he turned to Rick, and in his eyes was a history no bully could ever comprehend. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The low, measured weight of his words cut sharper than any shout. Rick tried to sneer, tried to throw out some excuse, but his throat betrayed him. The sound cracked, weak, swallowed by the atmosphere that now belonged entirely to Ethan. For the first time in his life, Rick Dalton realized he had picked a fight that wasn't his to win. One of Rick's friends tugged hard at his sleeve, whispering frantic words. The other grabbed him by the arm, both desperate to escape before the storm broke. Together, they pulled him toward the door, muttering excuses about being late, leaving behind the wreck of bravado that had moments earlier poisoned the room. The silence that followed was different now. No longer heavy with fear, it was threaded with relief, respect, and something almost sacred. The young waitress who had stood frozen finally exhaled. A man at the counter wiped his eyes, pretending it was just the smoke from the grill. Conversations returned in murmurs, not of fear, but of admiration. Evelyn breathed slowly, leaning ever so slightly into the steadying presence of her son. In that moment, they were not just mother and son, but survivors of 1,000 battles fought together in silence. Ethan had always carried her lessons with him, and now he stood as her proof that resilience and dignity were never wasted. At a corner booth, a blonde woman whispered to no one in particular, her voice trembling with awe. She raised a man who defends everyone. The words lingered in the air like a benediction, and suddenly, every person in that diner understood the true weight of Evelyn Hayes's life. Whispers of courage spread from table to table. Smiles flickered through tears. In the quiet aftermath of cruelty, the diner became a place where justice was not delivered through fists or fury, but through presence, through love, through the unwavering bond between a mother and her son. And though not everyone knew Ethan Hayes by name, they knew this. Cruelty had been silenced, and dignity had prevailed.